Here, I'm Jill Warning, and to start, I'm going to ask you to picture me as a 17-year-old in my semi-formal gown, ready for my fall formal with my date, all dressed up. We were out to dinner, and we had about an hour to kill before we wanted to arrive at the dance, not too early. And I grew up in a small Midwestern town where driving end to end took about 10 minutes. So it was either, 3 round trips or find something else to do. And we decided to go to the hospital. We thought that if you were stuck in the hospital on a Saturday night, seeing us come in might either spark some memory or maybe just be a pure distraction. And we had a really great time. It was fantastic. And so I brought up this story because it's just a little glimmer of what is the thread that I'm going to talk about today, and that's service to others. So from my social life to my schooling and education to career choices, travel choices, service to others is the common thread that goes throughout. And today I'm going to talk about how I leveraged my volunteer experiences, so the service and volunteerism. I'll share 3 specific tips for how you can do so, even if service to others isn't what motivates you, but how you can still leverage volunteering. And then I'll round out with a conclusion about that story. So this led from, first of all, I'll say, I'm going to assume for today that we all can agree volunteering is a good choice of how to use your time. Some of the benefits that people study and are trying to understand are that it shows increased happiness, that you're more socially connected, and thus you have lower likelihood of loneliness and depression. It's a stress reducer, and it increases the number, but also the quality of relationships in your life. And the main example of leveraging my volunteer experiences is actually my position here as the director of the Navy and Marine Corps Relief Society. That direct connection comes from an experience back in 2012 to 14, where I started an organization when I was stationed in, my husband was stationed in Sigonella, which was very similar to the work that I do now. And so it's easy to see the connection between those volunteer experiences. But to leave it there is an incomplete story. I don't have time to share everything, but I can assure you that, from before that hospital visit, I was volunteering, and in between, I had volunteer experiences that led me to taking the leadership role in Sigonella. It didn't just come out of nowhere. So everything you do volunteer-wise really builds on each other, or they build on each other, and can create endless possibilities, really. So the 3 specific tips that I have for you today are: adopt a marathon mentality, know yourself, and document as you go. So the marathon mentality for volunteering. People who go into volunteering with a fixed end in mind, like, I need to do this, or I want to be, volunteer of the year, or something like that, like they have specific resume bullets, you're more likely to burn out earlier and burn out more drastically, which can negatively impact your reputation. If you're only in it for the resume bullets, you may quit before you see what could have come from that time that you invested in the opportunity. So I'm suggesting that you trust in the process the way a marathon trainer trains for 16 to 18 weeks for an event that takes place one day. Trust in the process that's leading up to what the end goal you have in mind is, because along the way, you're building your reputation within the network. And this today is an example of what the network is. And I hope I'm sharing some examples, and all of us, of what the network can do for you. Second tip, know yourself. If possible, volunteer where you have a passion for the mission of the group or organization, because if you're passionate, you are going to care more, which means you're going to perform better, which leads to that reputation within the network. If you can understand your motivations, that will really help. So I'm talking about things like, I'm intrinsically motivated versus I'm extrinsically motivated, or extrovert or introvert, those personality type tests. The better you know yourself, the better you can know what the right volunteer experience is for you. And within an organization, which role you should take so that your strengths shine through. And again, that'll lead to you performing better and your reputation. See how it all kind of comes back together. And then know what you want from your position. So I know I just said don't do it for the resume bullets, but know what you want out of the experience is a little more broad than that. So say you want to develop your Microsoft Excel skills. There are so many ways every organization needs more information organized in a way that's helpful. That's what Excel spreadsheets do. Say you need to bulk up your writing and analysis on your resume. Every organization can use, like say you're in one of the spouse groups, you can analyze the process for recruitment and then write a report about the results. Say like how many people showed up for different events and evaluate it. Boom, you just added that to your resume. So that leads me to document as you go. Things that happen when you're doing it, sometimes you don't even realize the skills you're using, but maybe if you just talk to each other, talk to the leader of your organization and sort of like think about like, what skills did I just do that led to this accomplishment? So like all of the steering committee members can do this after today's event, things like that. Little things you do all the time, you're using skills. So just document them as you go and pretty soon you have bullet lists for your resume. So I know I don't have a ton of time left, but I wanted to share with you what I wrote for my application for the job I currently have from that experience in Sigonella. Now keep in mind, this was an unpaid position that I started with 4 of my friends because we had similar conversations that Lindsay discussed. Anyway, that I co-founded and oversaw a flagship overseas executive board of 9 directors, recruited volunteers, engaged members, nurtured partnerships, created an inclusive atmosphere for enlisted officer, civilian, and foreign national spouses, envisioned, strategized, and executed biannual community events with attendance of more than 50 community members, including a professional attire fashion show broadcast live on AFN radio, and a military spouse appreciation lunch with more than 35 active duty volunteers serving lunch to almost 50 military spouses, managed shoestring budget via innovative execution and leveraging local partnerships, and counseled members on professional development, salary considerations, and resumes. I'm guessing these are things some of you have done in your experiences, but documenting it helps you communicate it to future employers. So, in conclusion, my volunteer experience in Sicily didn't lead me to some of my previous goals when I was in undergrad or in law school. It didn't lead me to a current, raise at the job I had at the time. It certainly didn't lead to a job at my very next duty station, which was the one in between. But, the ripples of that action, those actions, continue to come back to me in life because I nurtured the network I had there and I documented the process. So I want to loop back to that high school girl I was visiting the hospital. So in one of the rooms we visited, I actually ended up talking to an older woman who was recovering from a procedure who went to the same church as my grandmother, a few towns over from where I lived. And this conversation led to that woman getting in touch with my grandmother and becoming more friends with her, joining her birthday lunch club. They were retired women, went out to lunch every month. And then her talking about me led to several community members who became aware of me, and that ended up getting me a summer internship. So it had personal ramifications for me, but also social ramifications for my grandmother and that woman. And the ripples of our interactions can be just as powerful for now and in the future.